Welcome to the deep dive. You know that feeling, right? That sense that maybe there's more in you, a better version just waiting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That drive for like peak performance,
Yeah.
self-optimization.
Exactly. It seems almost universal, and it's really what we want to get into today.
And what's interesting, I think, is where that sometimes comes from, you know?
How so?
Well, chasing that peak performance, maybe in your job, maybe a hobby, it's not always just about like the external win.
Right.
It can be tied into something deeper, a search for meaning maybe, or like a stronger sense of identity.
Uh-huh.
We can almost call it an identity purpose void.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the idea that hitting that next level out there might fill some kind of gap in here. Does that resonate with you at all?
Absolutely. Yeah, you pour all this energy into training, planning, whatever it is,
Mm,
hoping the next win isn't just a win, but maybe tells you something more profound about yourself.
exactly.
But then, well, then you hit the wall, that plateau.
Yeah, yeah. The worst.
You're doing the work, you're sticking with it, but nothing. Progress just stalls. You feel, I don't know, stuck.
And that feeling, being stuck, the frustration when you keep putting in the effort but aren't getting the same results back, it's so common.
Right. Athlete, musician.
Anyone, really, any field. And, you know, our sources really highlight that the methods most of us use, they have limits, built-in limits.
Mm.
There's just a point where doing more of the same or even doing it harder, it just doesn't cut it anymore. Doesn't break you through,
So the conventional stuff runs out of steam.
pretty much.
Yeah.
There's actually a conceptual scientific source we looked at that reviews a lot of literature basically saying just that. These conventional approaches, they have limitations.
Okay, so that leads us to something pretty interesting, something mentioned in that ESPN article.
Yes.
It talks about this, well, controversial new method some elite athletes are apparently using, frequency training.
Right, frequency training. And it's not your standard stuff.
No, definitely not. It's positioned as like really new, cutting edge, maybe even a bit secretive.
Yeah, the article hints at that. And what's really intriguing is the claim that this frequency training might be giving these athletes a major edge, like a really significant advantage.
An unfair advantage almost.
That's the kind of language used. And if you connect that back to the science, that conceptual source we mentioned, it actually talks about emerging sports tech and includes reports discussing this idea of increased training frequency.
So it's popping up in sports science circles too.
Seems like it. There's a growing buzz maybe in those high-performance worlds about these, let's say, less conventional ideas.
But here's the kicker, right? This isn't common knowledge.
Not at all.
The average person, trying to get better at something, they probably haven't heard about this.
No way. There's this huge gap, isn't there, between the, like, superhuman results you hear about
Yeah, next level performance.
and the actual advice that's, readily available to most people. It's almost like the elite are playing a different game.
Using a different playbook entirely.
Which makes you wonder, why isn't this stuff more out there? Our sources kind of hint at this idea of, well, what could you call it? A forbidden performance protocol.
Ooh, sounds intriguing.
Yeah, something that's just outside the standard way of thinking about training.
Mm.
That YouTube source we saw. The title, the thumbnail.
Elite athlete secrets revealed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the bit about feeling training stuck. It definitely taps into that idea of like secret knowledge, unconventional methods.
Hidden keys to unlock potential.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And that's where it loops back to you, the listener.
Right. Think about those times you've hit that wall.
Yeah.
When the usual strategies just stopped working. That frustration.
Mm-hmm.
What if the reason isn't just, you or your effort? What if it's the methods themselves that have a ceiling?
That's the question, isn't it?
Oh.
Our initial look suggests there might be other strategies, more effective ones maybe, that just haven't trickled down yet.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what we've done today really is just scratch the surface.
Setting the stage.
Yeah, we've talked about that universal drive, the common problem of plateaus with, standard training.
And this kind of controversial frequency training popping up among elites as maybe, just maybe, a way past those limits.
Exactly.
And this is just part one.
Just part one. Looking ahead, our next deep dive, we're going to start trying to unpack this forbidden performance protocol a bit more.
Getting into the specifics?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
We'll look at some of the key components people are talking about. Frequency, obviously, that's central.
Okay.
But also some of the really interesting things like cold thermogenesis.
Cold exposure.
Yeah. And even the role of consciousness in all this.
Wow. Okay. That sounds like a fascinating mix.
It is. And what's really interesting is how these things, which seem separate, might actually link up.
How they might work together.
Potentially, yeah. Forming what some sources hint at as resonant solutions.
Yes.
Optimizing performance through, like, synergy.
Resonant solutions.
Okay. And, hey, just a quick heads up for later talks. When we mention qi, it's pronounced chi, just so everyone's on the same page.
Good tip. Chi. Got it.
So as we wrap this first part up.
Yeah, let's leave everyone with something to think about.
Okay. So think about this.
Yeah.
We know the standard methods have limits, right? We've all felt that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this possibility, this hint, that more effective ways exist, maybe already being used at the top levels, but just aren't widely known.
Right.
So the question is, what new possibilities might that open up for your own peak performance? If the old rules have limits, what could new rules unlock?
Lot to chew on there. And that's exactly where we'll pick up next time. Ever wonder if we're, just scratching the surface of what humans can really do? What if getting to peak performance isn't just about, like, pushing harder the same old ways? What if there's a hidden key, maybe a combination we haven't seen?
That's exactly the fascinating area we're diving into today. We're looking at an approach to human performance that, well, it seems a bit out there, maybe on the fringes, but it's actually supported by some really intriguing connections across quite diverse fields of research, actually.
Exactly. So forget the usual fitness trends for a minute. We've basically got this trail of clues, pretty compelling ones, that point towards a potentially revolutionary training protocol, one that seems to operate largely out of the public eye.
Right.
So our mission today is to really unpack its core components and look at the evidence, what suggests it might actually work.
And the sources we're drawing on are definitely noteworthy. We'll be digging into a conceptual scientific review as published in 2025, Journal of Elite Performance and Covert Research. And this review, it kind of synthesizes things, pulling together threads from places like Stanford Sports Medicine.
Okay. Heavy hitters.
Olympic training centers, and even DARPA.
Wow, okay. DARPA, too. That's quite a mix. And you mentioned we've also sort of picked up on whispers online, right? Hints about this, let's call it an underground system.
Underground definitely implies a certain, maybe, exclusivity, which is a key thing we need to explore. But really, for you listening, this deep dive is about getting a clear, concise understanding a potentially significant development in performance training, and the thinking behind it, without getting too bogged down in, dense academic speak.
Okay, let's get into this underground approach then. The core idea, the thesis, is that there's this multi-part training system used by maybe elite athletes, special forces. And it's just not common knowledge.
Exactly. And it's not based on just one single thing. Our main source, that conceptual review, it really highlights a powerful synergy. It's about 3 distinct elements working together.
All right, let's pull back the curtain then. What are these 3 parts? What makes up the system?
Okay. The 3 key components seem to be these. First, specific frequency exposure. Second, cold thermogenesis. And third, advanced consciousness techniques.
Targeted vibrations, extreme cold, and harnessing the mind. I mean, that is a pretty unconventional mix, isn't it? It definitely makes you wonder why it might be kept, under wraps.
Precisely. So let's start with the first one, frequency exposure. The review emphasizes using specific frequencies for enhanced effects. Think of it maybe like different musical notes creating different vibrations. The idea here is that specific targeted vibrations can influence biological processes.
Right, so not just background noise or anything random. We're talking carefully chosen frequencies designed to have a specific impact, presumably. And the source suggests these become even more potent when combined with the other 2 elements.
That's the key idea, synergy. Now, we'll dig deeper into the how in part 3, the mechanisms, but for now, just consider the possibility that specific vibrations might, say, influence how cells communicate, or maybe nervous system activity, something along those lines.
Interesting. Okay, component number 2. Cold thermogenesis. Now we're talking more than just like a quick ice bath after hitting the gym, right?
Correct, yeah, much more. While ice baths are, part of the conversation, cold thermogenesis in this context, it involves strategic, sometimes quite extreme, protocols of cold exposure. And the goal is to build what the sources call extreme resilience. It goes way beyond just recovery.
Extreme resilience. That sounds like a fundamental change in how the body deals with stress. So it's not just bouncing back quicker, but becoming genuinely tougher against different kinds of stressors.
That's exactly the implication. The body's physiological reaction to controlled, intense cold. It's thought to kick off this whole cascade of adaptive changes, affecting things like inflammation, metabolic function, potentially a lot more.
Okay, so precisely tuned vibrations, training the body for intense cold. Now, the third piece, advanced consciousness techniques. This sounds a bit like peak performance guru stuff, but maybe with more substance.
You could say that, but it seems more rigorous.
Hmm.
The focus here is really on leveraging sophisticated mental techniques to actually amplify physical capabilities. The sources use phrases like mind hacks for peak physical output and applied consciousness techniques. Think of it as going beyond just, say, simple meditation. It's highly focused mental training.
So, more than just visualizing winning the race, we're talking about specific mental disciplines aimed squarely at boosting physical performance, directly.
That's the proposition, yes. The conceptual review suggests these advanced techniques could be specific meditation types, maybe neuro-linguistic programming, or very focused attention exercises. They can lead to enhanced mental control that then translates into measurable physical gains, real-world improvements.
Wow. It's like unlocking the mind's hidden power to push the body further. Now, okay, this all sounds very novel, almost sci-fi. What gives this whole protocol any credibility? Where's the grounding?
Right, and that's where the connections to established research become really important. The conceptual review we're looking at, it pulls together findings, maybe protocols, from some highly respected institutions. First off, Stanford Sports Medicine. They're obviously a leader in research for maximizing athletic potential.
Stanford, definitely. They're right at the cutting edge of sports science. So the idea is their work, maybe on recovery or neuromuscular stuff, overlaps with parts of this protocol.
The source suggests exactly that their work provides a kind of scientific underpinning for why some of these components might be effective. Then you've got Olympic training centers. I mean, these are places dedicated entirely to pushing human limits.
Makes sense. You'd expect them to be trying everything, right? The absolute latest methods. So the review implies they might be using, or at least experimenting with, techniques linked to frequency, cold, and this advanced mental training.
Precisely. That's the connection being made. And then, maybe most intriguingly, the review also points to research from DARPA,
Ah, okay.
the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Their job includes human performance optimization.
Oh.
And they seem particularly interested in the combined effects of different modalities, and importantly, covert applications.
DARPA's involvement, yeah, that immediately brings that special forces angle into sharp focus, doesn't it? It makes total sense they'd want anything that gives their people a decisive edge. And that emphasis you mentioned on the combined effects, DARPA looking at that specifically is very interesting.
It really is. So the conceptual source acts like a hub, right? Bringing together these insights from what seem like separate worlds, elite sports, high-performance training centers, and advanced military research, to outline this integrated protocol. And this convergence, this interest from credible places, it definitely lends weight to the whole idea, even within this conceptual frame.
So it's not just some theory cooked up in isolation. The argument is that research threads, hints from these major organizations, all point towards the potential of this combined system.
Exactly. And the conceptual review really hammers home that the true power, the real breakthrough, is supposedly in the synergy. It's not just doing frequency stuff on Monday, cold on Tuesday, mind stuff on Wednesday. It's the powerful trifecta, the combined approach, where the effects of the frequencies, the cold, the consciousness techniques, they amplify each other.
Like the whole becomes much, much bigger than just adding up the individual parts.
That's the core idea, precisely. The thinking is, by hitting different biological pathways, different neurological systems all at once, or in a coordinated way, this combined protocol can unlock performance boosts that you just wouldn't get from any single method alone.
Which naturally brings us back to the question of why isn't this everywhere? Back to that underground or largely hidden aspect. What are the likely reasons for the secrecy?
Well, the sources suggest a few possibilities. First, think about elite sports. Hyper-competitive, right?
Yeah.
Any real performance advantage, especially a significant one, would be guarded like state secrets.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Imagine one team or one country having a training system that just consistently works better. You'd keep that quiet for as long as you possibly could.
Definitely. And then there's the military angle with DARPA. It's pretty obvious why they wouldn't want potential adversaries knowing about techniques that could seriously boost Special Forces capabilities.
Right. Makes perfect sense.
That phrase, covert applications, pretty much screams, keep this secret for strategic reasons.
Yeah.
Plus, you also have the factor that some of these methods just sound unconventional, don't they? Specific frequencies, advanced mind techniques. They might face skepticism, maybe just a lack of understanding, in more traditional training circles.
Yeah, I can see that. People might just dismiss it as too weird or unproven, even if it works. So it's a mix, maybe. Desire for competitive advantage, military secrecy, and maybe some resistance to things that seem unconventional. That could explain why it's not mainstream.
That seems to be the most plausible picture, based on the information we have available. The conceptual review and the context around it, it paints this picture of a potentially game-changing system, used at the highest levels perhaps, but kept deliberately out of the spotlight.
Okay, let's try to wrap up what we've unpacked in this deep dive then. This elite protocol, this superhuman optimization idea. It seems to be this really intriguing blend. You've got precisely tuned frequency exposure, you've got cold thermogenesis building serious resilience, and these advanced consciousness techniques for like mental command over the body.
Right. And what makes it particularly compelling isn't just the combination, but the suggestion. It's not just theory. The conceptual review ties it, or at least finds parallels, in research and application within big names. Stanford Sports Medicine, Olympic centers, DARPA. It hints at potentially massive breakthroughs in human performance through this integrated approach.
And the fact that it all seems so closely guarded just adds another layer of intrigue, doesn't it? So, here's a thought to leave you with. Given the potential power here, the potential to really push human limits, what are the wider implications if this kind of knowledge stays exclusive? If it's only available to a very select few?
That is a critical question, isn't it? With some potentially far-reaching consequences. And looking ahead, our next deep dive, part 3, we're going to go even deeper into the science behind it all. We'll really explore the fundamental ideas of how frequency and consciousness techniques might actually work. Biologically, neurologically, how they could enhance performance at that level.
Okay, fascinating. So keep pondering that question, stay curious, and definitely join us next time as we continue trying to unravel the secrets behind this elite performance protocol. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into Superhuman Protocol Part 3, the science of frequency, cold and mind hacking your body.
That's right.
We're aiming to go beyond just the, surface level stuff. We want to look at the actual physiology, the established science, and maybe even some of that cutting edge quantum thinking behind it all.
Exactly. We've got some really interesting material here. The goal isn't just to, list wellness trends.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's to unpack how frequency exposure, how cold thermogenesis, how these consciousness techniques actually work with your biology.
Yeah.
Down to the cellular level, and maybe, just maybe, even deeper.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Frequency hacking or bioenergetic resonance. Sounds a bit sci-fi, maybe?
A little, perhaps.
But how can, specific frequencies actually do anything for performance or recovery? What's the science say?
Well, what's really interesting is the biology that we do understand. Our bodies fundamentally are systems of vibrating particles, right? Atoms, molecules. So the idea is that certain external frequencies can resonate with these natural vibrations in our body.
Like hitting a tuning fork.
Sort of, yeah. A good example is vasodilation. Some research suggests specific frequencies can help blood vessels relax and widen.
Ah, okay. Better blood flow.
Precisely. And better blood flow means, improved circulation. For anyone active, that translates to potentially faster recovery, maybe less muscle soreness.
Because you're getting nutrients in and waste out more efficiently?
Exactly. It could even boost endurance, theoretically. And then there's this idea of cellular resonance.
Okay, tell me about that.
Our conceptual source, bioenergetic resonance and neurosomatic entrainment, kind of digs into this. It suggests that specific frequencies might influence how cells function, like gently encouraging them to vibrate more optimally.
Optimally, meaning what exactly?
Potentially impacting things like energy production within the cell, or maybe even speeding up repair processes.
Yeah.
It's like giving them a nudge in the right direction.
So if we really understand which frequencies do what, could we use this really precisely, like targeting specific outcomes?
That's the potential. Yes, that's the exciting part. Imagine, down the line, using specific vibrational therapies to boost athletic performance or accelerate healing from injuries.
Or even manage inflammation.
Potentially, yes, with more precision than we currently can. We're really just starting to understand this cellular communication via frequency.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, let's switch gears. Let's talk about cold shock, cold thermogenesis.
Right, the bracing stuff.
Yeah, most people probably just think, horrible ice baths and shivering. But the science, I gather, is a bit more sophisticated than just being uncomfortable.
Oh, much more. Cold thermogenesis isn't just about willpower. It's about deliberately triggering specific upgrades in your hormonal and nervous systems.
Upgrades.
A key concept is hormesis. Have you heard of that?
Vaguely. Remind me.
Okay, think of it like this. A very small, controlled stress makes the system stronger and more resilient overall, like a vaccine almost.
Okay, so the cold is that small stressor.
Exactly. A controlled dose of cold stress pushes your body to adapt, making it better able to handle all kinds of stress, not just cold.
Interesting. So what are these adaptations, these upgrades you mentioned?
Well, one big one is activating brown fat.
Right, the good fat.
Yeah, the metabolically active kind that actually burns calories to generate heat. So you get better temperature regulation plus metabolic benefits.
Okay. What else?
It also stimulates the vagus nerve, big time.
And the vagus nerve is like the main brake pedal for the nervous system.
That's a great way to put it. It's key to your rest and digest system, the parasympathetic side. Stimulating it with cold can improve your heart rate variability, lower stress overall, even help digestion.
Wow.
And importantly, it triggers anti-inflammatory responses throughout the body, so less chronic inflammation.
So it's really not just about mind over matter, is it? There are concrete physiological shifts.
Absolutely, real changes. And our source material mentions potential long-term adaptations too.
Like what? If you stick with it.
You could potentially see, more active brown fat overall, becoming genuinely more tolerant to cold, and having a stronger vagal tone, meaning your body's better at shifting into that calm speed, better resilience.
The body really is adaptable.
Incredibly so.
Yeah.
And controlled cold seems to be a powerful way to tap into that adaptability.
Okay, this is cool. Let's move to the third pillar. Consciousness. Mind hacking. How can our thoughts, our focused things that seem so intangible, actually affect our physical bodies, the mind-body connection?
Yeah, this is where that old idea of a strict separation between mind and body really starts to break down, scientifically speaking.
How so?
Because techniques like visualization or meditation or getting into a flow state, they aren't just mental exercises. They have measurable physical effects.
Okay, give me some examples. Like what actually changes physiologically?
Okay, take visualization. Studies show that vividly imagining performing an action, say shooting a basketball, can actually activate similar neural pathways as doing it. Yes. And over time, this can lead to real improvements in motor skills, maybe even strength gains, without physically practicing as much.
Wild. What about meditation?
Meditation is strongly linked to lower cortisol levels. That's the primary stress hormone.
Right.
Also often lower blood pressure, better heart rate variability. It basically indicates a nervous system that's more balanced, more resilient, calmer.
States. That feeling of being totally absorbed.
Yeah, in the zone. Those states are often associated with optimized neurochemistry, better focus, enhanced problem solving. Your brain is just working really efficiently.
So it's like our consciousness can directly tweak the body's settings. The source talks about focused consciousness impacting physiology. What areas could that touch?
Well, potentially, we're looking at influencing the autonomic nervous system, directly shifting between fight or flight and rest and digest. Also modulating hormone release, maybe even influencing immune responses or cellular repair processes through focused intention.
Through intention.
It sounds out there, I know. But the more we learn, the more it seems our conscious awareness is deeply intertwined with our biological processes. We might be able to direct those internal resources more skillfully.
Okay, so let's tie this together. The underlying mechanisms, we touched on some, but let's get a bit deeper. Cellular regeneration, nervous system tuning, hormonal optimization. These sound complex.
They definitely are. I mean, these involve intricate biochemical cascades, feedback loops. Cellular regeneration is happening all the time, but things like frequency or controlled stress might influence its efficiency.
And nervous system tuning.
That's about optimizing that balance we talked about between the sympathetic go-go-go system and the parasympathetic calm and repair system. Getting that balance right is crucial for everything from stress resilience to recovery.
Makes sense. And hormonal optimization.
Ensuring the right hormones are released at the right times in the right amounts. This impacts energy, mood, sleep, metabolism, pretty much everything.
Right. Now, this is where it gets potentially mind-bending. Quantum biology. Bioenergetics. You mentioned this as a deeper potential layer. What exactly is that?
Yeah, it's definitely pushing the boundaries. Quantum biology basically explores whether phenomena from quantum physics, things happening at the subatomic level, like quantum coherence or tunneling, might actually play important roles in biological processes.
Things we thought only happened in physics labs.
Potentially happening inside ourselves, yes. Our conceptual source mentions these theoretical interactions. It's where biology meets well, the weirdness of quantum mechanics.
Okay. So how could frequency or even consciousness play a role at that level? That sounds incredibly fundamental.
Well, theoretically, and this is very much frontier science, certain frequencies might interact directly with the quantum fields within our cells,
Hmm.
perhaps influencing energy transfer or chemical reactions in ways classical biology doesn't fully capture.
And consciousness.
It's, again, highly theoretical, but some researchers speculate that consciousness itself might operate, at some level, via quantum processes, or at least interact with them. It suggests that the physiological effects we see might have even deeper quantum roots.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot to take in.
It is.
And I appreciate you breaking it down. It's clear you're trying to make this complex science understandable.
Absolutely essential. The goal is to translate the jargon, use analogies, make these big ideas digestible, not to overwhelm people, but to show them the incredible potential that science suggests might be within us.
Yeah, and I think the overall feeling here is one of like scientific discovery, almost awe at what the body can do.
Definitely. It's about being curious, respecting the body's complexity and its capacity for, well, optimization.
Well, this has been a really, really insightful deep dive into the science behind these three pillars: frequency, cold, and mind hacking. It sets the stage perfectly, I think.
It does. Because understanding the why and the how is crucial before we get to the what to do.
Exactly. And speaking of what to do,
Right. In our next conversation, we're going to take all this science, this foundation, and start talking about practical application. We'll introduce some actionable resonance solutions.
and explore how you, listening right now, can actually start integrating these ideas for your own growth, your own transformation.
That's the plan.
Okay, so to leave you with something to chew on until then, if our biology really is this responsive, this tunable by things like frequency and even our own focused awareness, what untapped potential is lying dormant inside you right now, just waiting, something to think about? Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into something pretty cutting edge: performance optimization.
Yeah, definitely.
We've got this interesting conceptual scientific article democratizing peak performance, and also some material from, well, what we're calling Superhuman Optimization Protocol Part 4.
Right.
And our goal really is to understand how these like previously super exclusive, almost forbidden elite technologies are starting to become available.
And what that actually means for your potential.
Exactly. It feels like a big shift where, these scientific ideas are turning into real tools people can use.
Mm-hmm. It's quite a moment.
Okay, so maybe let's quickly touch on the superhuman protocol idea again, just briefly.
But
For anyone new, it's basically the concept that beyond your standard gym routine or training, there are these more advanced ways to optimize performance.
historically used by, well, a very select group.
Yeah, exactly. And now we're seeing bits of that tech, trickle down.
That's right. And a really key part of this shift involves what the sources are calling resonance solutions.
Resonance solutions, okay.
Yeah, technologies that basically use specific frequencies to interact with your body.
Okay, so like these key coils we've seen, and just so everyone knows, it's key, pronounced chi.
Correct. CHI.
These are apparently for athletic enhancement. There's a site, quillofstore.com.
Mm-hmm. And there's also this other thing, 8 free quantum frequencies.
Right, I saw that. Aimed at what? Recovery and performance?
Optimizing recovery. Yeah, and performance generally. That's at quantummedicine.io.
Interesting. So what's the science connecting these?
Well, it ties back to what we talked about in part 3, remember, these frequency principles.
Ah, okay. The idea that certain frequencies can influence biological stuff.
Precisely. And the scientific article actually mentions resonance technologies and quantum frequencies, too. So there's a conceptual link there.
So it's not just random tech appearing.
No, there's a theoretical underpinning. Think of it maybe like musical notes. Different notes create different vibrations, different feelings.
Okay, I get that.
These frequencies might sort of interact with your body's own natural rhythms or frequencies in helpful ways.
Right, right. Okay, so this is the important part for you listening.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that these key coils and quantum frequencies are out there means these kinds of techniques aren't just for like Olympic athletes or secret labs anymore.
Exactly. You actually have the chance now to explore them, to potentially use them yourself.
For your own performance goals.
Yeah. And that leads to maybe a surprising thought. A bit contrarian.
Which is?
We tend to think conventional training, hard work, diet, rest is the absolute limit, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
But these resonance technologies suggest, well, maybe there's more. Maybe there are other dimensions to human capability we haven't fully tapped into.
Dimensions these frequencies could help unlock.
Potentially. That seems to be the idea.
Wow. Okay, so it's not about, like, skipping the hard work,
No, definitely not. More like enhancing the results of that work, perhaps.
making it more effective. Okay, I see. And this ties into the idea of listener transformation, right?
Yeah, you could say that. By learning about this, by potentially using these tools, you're accessing knowledge that was, frankly, guarded before.
There's almost like a status thing to it. Knowing about the cutting edge.
You could see it that way,
Yeah.
being informed about what's emerging.
And thinking bigger picture, like the scientific article touches on.
Yeah,
Making this stuff widely available, it raises big questions, doesn't it? About the future, about ethics.
absolutely. What happens when optimizing performance this way becomes, well, more normal?
Yeah. So bringing it back home, the key thing for you listening is what?
I think it's the potential. The potential to maybe push beyond what you thought were your limits.
Using these accessible resonance technologies, it's like a new frontier.
It really is. A
Like,
new way to think about achieving peak performance.
so here's a final thought maybe to chew on. How might understanding and, using these fundamental frequencies actually change how we define human capability altogether?
What could peak performance really mean if these tools are available for everyone? It's a deep question.